I intend to study and teach, to take and give reminders, benefit and assistance, and to inspire myself and others to hold fast to the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to call to guidance and direct to goodness, seeking the countenance of Allah, His pleasure, nearness, and reward. Okay, so we'll just start off with doing a recap over the letters that we've covered so far. So I wrote them down already. Okay, so Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We start with Alif, Ba, Da, Tha, Jim, Ha, Kha, Dal, Dal, Ra, Za, Sin, Sheen, Sad, Dad, Ta, Dha, Ain, Ghain. Okay, so can someone tell me how many letters we pronounce with sticking our tongue out? Okay, so far not correct. Right, so Hawanur, yes, there's 3 letters that we would recite with sticking our tongue out. Those 3 letters being the Tha, the Dal, and the Dha. Okay, so there's 3 letters that we would pronounce with sticking our tongue out. The Tha with a smile, Tha, the Tha, just normal Tha, and then the Dha is the heavy one, okay, with a slight puffiness in our cheeks. So again, Tha, Dal, Dha. Okay, so 3 letters that we need to pay attention to when we're reciting. Okay, the Ha. Where is the Ha pronounced from? Which part of the throat? Okay, yeah, so Kanwal, yeah, you're right. So the Ha is pronounced from the middle of the throat, okay, and it's lots of air. Okay, and the Kha, where is that pronounced from? From the top, yeah, so well done. So the Kha is pronounced from the top of the throat and it's very scratchy. Okay, so there's a slight gargle, but it's not really a gargle, it's more of just a scratch. So Kha, Kha. Okay, and then the Dal and the Dal. What other letter did we need to pay attention to? So the Sin and the Sad. Where is it pronounced from? The tip of the tongue touching the tip of the tongue touching the tips of the, yeah, so the tip of the tongue touching the tips of the lower teeth. Okay, so the lower teeth, we're talking about the inner tips of our lower teeth. So when we're saying Sa, it's a little bit with more of a smile. So Sa, Sa, like snake. And then you would have Sad, which is a heavier version, and it's Sa, Sa. Okay, so it's a heavier version. Sin, Sad, Sin, Sad. Okay, and then you have the letter Dad, which is the heavy letter. Okay, and we said that it's the side of the tongue. It's the side of the tongue touching the molar teeth. The side of the tongue touching the molar teeth, and it's a heavy letter, lots of air coming out. Okay, and then we have the letter Ta. Okay, so the letter Ta is another heavy letter, and the letter Ghain is a gargly letter, and it's from the, which part of the throat is the Ghain from? Yeah, from the top of the throat, well done. So the Ghain is from the top of the throat. So how many letters are pronounced from the top of the throat that we've covered so far? 2, yeah, well done. How many letters are pronounced from the middle of the throat that we've covered so far? The same thing, yeah, 2. Okay, and is there anything else that I can ask at this point? No? Okay, we'll leave it as that for what we've covered so far. And then we are focusing on the next letters, which are Fa. So the letter Fa. So the letter Fa is literally like frog, you know, as in terms of it's that Fa sound. Then you've got Qaf, you've got Gaf, And we're just going to go through lam and meme also. Okay, so lam and meme are nice and easy. It's the equivalent of L in the English language. And so the idea is with the lam, you're using okay, so imagine that this is your tongue. We're going to go through this in a lot more detail at a later point. So remember how I said that, as in we're just getting a basic understanding. But just for the sake of just going through it, when we're pronouncing the lam, why it's important is that it's a very common mistake that when we recite Surah Fatiha, we say Alhamdu. Okay, it's not Alhamdu. If you look at my mouth and I say Al, you can see the back, and I'm really just using the tip of my tongue touching the gums of my upper front teeth, whereas it's actually meant to be the fronted edge. So it's more of like the round bit. Okay, I'll repeat it, don't worry. So if I just take out my tongue, and you'll notice that that is my tip. Okay, so that is my tip. I'm not talking about my tip touching the gums of my upper front teeth. I'm talking about the rounded front. Okay, so it's a bit hard for me to be able to explain it while I'm talking, but I'm just going to point to my tip first, and then I'm going to point to the rounded area that I'm referring to as how you should pronounce the lam. Okay, I hope that made sense. Right, so it's not the tip of your tongue, it is the rounded edge, and that's touching the gums of your upper front teeth. So in reality, it's from your canine to your other canine. Okay, so the canine are the pointy ones. Okay, so don't worry about it too much, because again, I will be emphasizing this as we later go on in more depth and in terms of how we're reciting. But for now, I just need you to move away from the concept that it is the tip of the tongue touching the gums of the upper front teeth. It's not the tip, it's the fronted edge. Okay, that's the lam. So when we say la, in comparison to la. Okay, so if you notice when I'm saying la, it's a little bit more narrow. Okay, whereas when I'm saying la, it's a little bit more wider out, and that's what you're referring to. That's how we should be pronouncing it, this lam. Okay, then we have the meme. The meme is nice and straightforward. It's the equivalent of M in English, and so you would just press the lips together, ma. Okay, and it's the dry part of your lips. So you're saying ma. Okay, ma. In comparison to the ba, where the ba is, what do you think? So do you think that the ba, when you're saying the ba, you pronounce it using the dry part of your lip or the inner wet part? Have a think about it, practice it a little bit. So when you're saying ba, am I pronouncing it with inner or the dry? Okay, so the variations, some people are saying the dry bit, some people are saying the inner bit. So it's actually meant to be the inner bit. Okay, so the inner bit is what you're pressing, and just with a little bit more force. So I would say it as ba, in comparison to saying ba. Okay, so again, I wouldn't say ba, I would say ba. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so that's the lam, that's the meme. Okay, so the meme is the dry part, just pressing it softly, ma. Okay, the fa is known to be the lightest letter in the Arabic language, so it's meant to be just nice and soft, as in terms of how you're pronouncing it. And the idea is that your upper teeth are grazing into the wet part of your lower lip. Okay, so it's fa. It's not fa where I press into the dry part of my lower lip. It's the inner bit. Fa. Okay, so the inner bit of your lower lip is where you're pronouncing that fa from. Not fa, even though I just did it now. So it's fa. Okay, then you've got the qaf and the kaf. Okay, so these two letters are normally where most people become a little bit lazy, or they don't pronounce it how they should. So the qaf is the heavy one. Okay, so that's a H, it's meant to be. So the qaf is a heavy one, and the kaf is a light one. So look at how I say qaf in comparison to kaf. Qaf, kaf. Okay, and I'm not going to go too much into detail with regards to how you're meant to be pronouncing it in its full capacity, but just generally to give you an idea, it's the tongue. Okay, so you know how we said that this was the front part of the tongue, and we said how many parts of the tongue did I describe? I think I covered it yesterday, just slightly. I just touched upon it because I was talking about it was, I think maybe it was the dod, and we said that the side of the tongue is used for the dod. We've used the tip of the tongue quite a lot. Okay, so we've used the tip before, we've used the sides before, we've used the middle with the jim, and there's one more. It's actually 4 parts of the tongue, okay, that we will be covering or I'll be mentioning. So that's the tip, the side, the middle, and the back. Okay, so don't worry about it too much because as in terms of we will be going through these in more detail as we go along. But with the qaf, just so that you know, it's from the back of the tongue. Okay, so what do I mean by the back of the tongue? So first of all, I'd like you to just use your tip of your tongue, so stick your tongue out, okay, and then touch the upper palate, you know, as in terms of the roof of your mouth. So just bring it all the way back, and you'll notice that there's a dry, well, it's not dry, it's a bony area. And then it gets to a point where it's like a little bit soft. Okay, so just try it again. So you tip of your tongue, you're just touching the top part of your mouth. Okay, it's known as the upper palate. And so it's bony, and then it gets to a soft bit. So what we're doing is when we're pronouncing the qaf, is the back of the tongue. Okay, so imagine that this is my tongue. Imagine that this is my tongue. Okay, and I was saying about the roof being here. Okay, so this is my bony bit, and then there's a little bit here, that's my soft bit. And what I'm essentially doing is I'm getting the back of my tongue and I'm lifting it up towards the soft part of my upper palate. Okay, so it seems complicated when I'm describing it like this, but we will be going through it in a lot more detail. But I just want for those people that just like to have a little bit of an idea at this stage, that it's the back of the tongue being lifted up towards the soft part of the upper palate. Okay, so how is that in its practicality? It literally sounds, I normally refer it back to like how you would hear a crow, and how it would say qaw, qaw. Okay, so that sound is what you are trying to grasp when you're saying the letter qaf. Okay, so if that qaf had a fatah on it, I would pronounce it like qa, qa. If it had a kasra on it, it would be pronounced as qi, qi. And if it had a dhamma on it, it would be pronounced as qu, qu. Okay, and then the kaf is with a bit of more of a smile. Okay, so it's literally just like the letter is called kaf, okay, but the sound is a ka sound. So you would say it as ka, ku, ki, ka, ku, ki. Okay, so again, I would say that the kaf is very similar to the K in the English language, whereas the qaf you just need to be a little bit more aware of, and it's normally in transliterations it's more referred to as the Q, but it's really a heavier version of the Q. Okay, so again, we'll just go through pronouncing it. Fa, fa, the inner lip, fa. Then you've got qaf, kaf, lam, mim. Again, fa, qaf, kaf, lam, mim. From the start, alif, ba, ta, tha, jim, ha, lots of air. Ha, one more time, ha. Then you've got kha, 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 dal, dhal. Remember to stick out your tongue. Dhal, ra, za, sin, shin, صاد ضاد طاء ظاء عين غين فاء قاف 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 كاف 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 لام لام ميم ميم. Okay, And so we will leave it as that in terms of our letters. And then we will go through, I think we should, inshallah, be finishing the letters tomorrow. I'm hoping so anyway. Okay, so that's our letters for today. Okay. And so we're just going over the Tajweed rules. So just quickly, if someone can tell me, what do you do when you see a noon with a shadda on it or a meme with a shadda on it? How do I pronounce it? Gunna, yeah. Okay, so I would pronounce it with the gunna. Whenever I see a noon with a shadda on it, a meme with a shadda on it, I pronounce it with gunna. For example, anna, amma. The second rule that we learned was qalqala. Can someone tell me what does qalqala mean? An echo or a bounce, yeah. How many letters of qalqala are there? Yeah, 5. Those letters being qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. So the rule is that whenever you see a qaf, ta, ba, jim or dal with a sukoon on it, we pronounce it with a bounce. So we would say aqa, ata, aba, aja, ada. Okay, and that little phrase is known as the phrase kutubu jaddin. Okay, so kutubu jaddin is the phrase that helps you remember these letters. And we said that even if you don't remember the phrase, try and remember the order, because you're more likely to secure it in your knowledge if you know it in a specific order, and this order works. Qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. Okay, the rule that we learned yesterday was in relation to the name of Allah. So what was the rule? It was all about what comes before. Okay, so we said that there's 3 possible sounds. It can either be a fatha, a kasra, or a dhamma. Okay, so the rule is that whenever you see the name of Allah, you know that this lam here, I will either be pronouncing it heavy or I will be pronouncing it lightly. If it has a fatha or a dhamma before the name of Allah, I would pronounce the lam in the name of Allah heavy. Good. If it has a kasra before the name of Allah, I would pronounce it light. Okay, and it's as simple as that, nice and easy. I would either pronounce it as la, like Allah, or I would pronounce it light, like Allah, Allah. Okay, so remember, la in comparison to la, la in comparison to la. Okay, and that's the rules that we've covered so far. I just want to touch upon another rule for today, inshallah. Okay, it's a nice and easy one. And that is the letter, well, it's the rule of the letter Ra. Okay, so there's a whole rule in relation to this letter Ra. Okay, so if you notice, sometimes when I'm saying the letters, the letter Ra, I'm pronouncing it heavy. Okay, so with the letter Ra, the basic rule is that it is sometimes heavy and sometimes light. Okay, just mute yourself. Or mute yourself, sorry. So the letter Ra is sometimes heavy and sometimes light. Okay, so for now, we're just going to go through one aspect of it. And that is that when the Ra has a fatha on it, it is heavy. If the Ra has a dhamma on it, it is, what do you think? Anyone want to guess? Heavy, yeah. If the Ra has a kasra on it, it is light. Okay, So the rule is that whenever you see a ra with a fatah on it, it's heavy, meaning I would say it as raw, raw. And if you notice, again, it's that rounded kind of face. If the ra has a dhamma on it, it is ru, ru, heavy. If the ra has a kasra on it, it's light. Okay, so I would say it as ri, ri. Okay, and so that is the rule in its basic form. Okay, I'm just going to add touch upon it just for the first part. So when the ra has a fatah on it or a dhamma on it, we pronounce it heavy. If the ra has a kasra on it, we pronounce it light. What do you think? Do you think that if the ra has a fatatain on it, so double, do you think it's pronounced heavy or do you think it's pronounced light? Okay, so iPhone said heavy. So give your names, guys. So the ra has, if it's got a fatatain on it, it is pronounced heavy. What about if it has two dhammas? Heavy. If the ra has two kasras, it is light. Okay, so you've learnt now that whenever the ra has a fatah on it, or the ra has a dhamma on it, or the ra has a fatatain, or the ra has a dhammatain, it is pronounced heavy. Okay? If the ra has a kasra on it, or the ra has a kasratain on it, it is pronounced light. Okay? So I'll just repeat that one more time. If the ra has a fatah on it, or a dhamma on it, fatatain, dhammatain, it is pronounced heavy. How? Ra, ru, run, run. Okay, in comparison to when the ra has a kasra on it or a kasratain, it is pronounced light. Okay, so it's ri, rin. And you will find with the rules of Tajweed that normally the fatah and the dhamma all relate to something that is heavy. Not always the case, but generally. And the kasra or the kasratain relates to something that is light. Okay, and that's just generally, as in terms of as we go along, you'll be able to start guessing what some of the rules will be based on this concept that the fatah, fatatain, dhamma, dhammatain normally relates to the heaviness, and the kasra or the kasratain relates to lightness with certain rules. Okay, so that's your rules for today. We'll go through it again tomorrow and see it in its practicality. But for now, that is your rule. So technically, we have studied 3 rules, well, 4 rules now. We've learned the noon and the mim mushadda, we've learned qalqala, we've learned the lam in the name of Allah, and the ra. Now the ra has more rules that relate to it, but you have it at its basic term. Okay, let's try and read a surah together now, inshallah. Okay, this is the one that I wanted to go through yesterday, so let's go through it now, inshallah. Okay, so remember, you're looking for any qalqalans, you're looking for any noon or mim mushaddas, you're looking for any ras now, if there's any ras in here. I don't think there are. But and then you're also looking for the lam in the name of Allah. Okay, so Bismillah, Rahman, Rahim. Qul هو الله أحد. قل هو الله أحد. Can anyone tell me whether that lam in the name of Allah is heavy or light? Is it pronounced heavy or is it pronounced lightly? Okay, it's heavy. So it is قل هو الله قل هو الله أحد. Okay, why is it heavy? What does the waw have on it? The waw has a fatah on it, and remember the rule is that whenever the name of Allah has a fatah before it, you would pronounce the lam in the name of Allah heavy. So I would pronounce it as قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. What's at the end of the ayah? What rule do we have here? أحد. Qalqala, thank you. So Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad. So now the second ayah, there's not actually a haraka that comes before the name of Allah, but you would normally put a fatah before the start of an ayah if it doesn't relate to any other rule. So here I would naturally put a fatah before it. And so if there's a fatah before the name of Allah, we know that we pronounce that lam in the name of Allah heavy. So it's Allahu samad. The sad is heavy, so try and emphasize it. Allahu samad. And there again is a qalqala at the end of the ayah. Then we have lam yalid wa lam yulad. Again, lam yalid wa lam yulad. Wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Okay, so there's another qalqala at the end. Can anyone remind me how many qalqalans we have in this surah? We've done it before. 5, thank you, Sonia. So there's 5 qalqalas at the, in this surah. And how many rules relating to the name of Allah are there here in that the lam in the name of Allah is pronounced heavy? How many rules? Yeah, well done, Sarah. That's there's 2, huwallah, and then there's Allahu samad. Okay, can someone tell me how many heavy letters there are in this surah? Okay, we haven't gone through heavy letters as a rule officially yet, but if we can think about what letters we've gone through so far. So Kaifa said 1. There's more than 1, guys. Keep looking. Okay, so Saika Hassan said 3. There's not 3. Unless I'm missing one. 4. Okay, let's go through it. Okay, so we've got the qaf, which is the first one. We know that qaf is a heavy letter because I just mentioned it now. Huwallah. We're not going to include the lam in the name of Allah because technically that's another rule. So we're talking about just the letters, the heavy letters. So qaf in the first ayah. There's no other ones in the first ayah. In the second ayah, we've got Allahu samad. Sad is a heavy letter. Okay, so that's 2. There's no more in the second ayah. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. There's no heavy letters in the ayah. Wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. There's no heavy letters in the fourth ayah. So there's 2 heavy letters in this surah, the qaf and the sad. Okay, and don't worry, we're going to be going through this on a regular. I'm going to be testing you, making sure that we know which ones are the heavy letters and applying it and seeing it. For now, it's just good for you to pay attention to it. And we'll leave it as that, inshallah, in terms of tajweed. So just